I'm Barney Dalgarno, and this video is a thought piece in response to the CSU 2018 Think Piece theme of reversing the moves to disaggregate teaching to rather reassemble the parts into the complex whole that is teaching for learning. Part of the genesis of the theme for this year's Think Piece series was a future scenario that I developed to help inform the CSU strategy, which focused on the notion of unbundling. In that scenario, I looked at what higher education would be like in a post-digital disruption environment. Now, digital disruption has occurred in quite a few industries, and a key element of it has been a move from a pipeline model to a platform model. In a pipeline model, a single business provides all aspects of the value chain. So, for example, in higher education, a university might market its courses, admit students, teach students, provide them with various kinds of support, assess their work, and ultimately, if they're successful, allow them to graduate and provide them with a testama. So you can see that universities use that kind of a pipeline model, providing all aspects of the value chain. In a post-digital disruption environment, I suggested that rather than a pipeline model, we might see universities adopting a platform model where the university admits the students and oversees their learning experience, but actually allows a whole range of different providers to provide different aspects of the student's learning experience. And some of those providers might look after things like assessment, student support, the provision of online resources, actual teaching, support for placements, and so on, while the university would take an overall responsibility and make sure that students met the required outcomes in order to graduate. Now, in that scenario, students have a huge amount of choice and have the opportunity to pick up aspects of their experience from a whole range of providers, or just choose to bypass aspects of the experience if they're trying to get a cheap degree, or if they kind of decide that some of those things aren't necessary for them. Now look, I acknowledge that we're a long way away from that kind of post-digital disruption environment. And I acknowledge that there are all kinds of tensions, I guess, in terms of thinking about whether a student would actually have a quality learning experience in that kind of post-disruption environment. But I think that already students have a huge amount of choice and are making a lot of those choices. And so what I'm kind of arguing here is that already we have a different notion of quality in the way that we think about student learning experiences in higher education. And already we're in a situation where, even though as educators we believe that the best quality learning experience would be one where we design all of the elements and we actually deliver a cohesive learning experience for students, we're already in a situation where the vast majority of students just aren't taking up all of those pieces. So to help kind of illustrate that, let's have a look at a couple of scenarios. So the first scenario is a typical school leaver, undergraduate on-campus student living on campus. So these students now are choosing whether or not to attend lectures, and a lot of them are choosing not to attend lectures. What they've figured out is that engaging with a recorded lecture where they can play it at a faster speed, they can stop it to take notes, they can rewatch particular bits, they can fast forward through bits that they already understand. They can actually get better value for their time by engaging interactively with a recording than by sitting through a whole lecture. These students are also often not taking up tutorials unless they're compulsory, but they may well be engaging in high quality peer learning activities within their colleges with other students in their course, or with students who did the same subjects the previous year. They may be taking up some of the learning resources that are provided by their lecturers, but often if they get stuck on a piece of assessment, they'll Google in order to find the answer. And some of those students are highly successful and are becoming really strong, self-regulated learners who are able to choose what experiences they need in order to successfully complete the subject. The second scenario is online students. Many of our online students are studying online because they are incredibly busy, they're working full time, they have families. So often their study day doesn't commence till 8 or 9 p.m. at night after they've worked a full day, read stories to the kids, helped them with their homework, cooked dinner, washed up, etc. So at that time of night, there aren't too many synchronous learning experiences available to them. If there was an online class, it probably was held hours earlier. They might watch it on video, same as an on-campus student, fast-forwarding through the bits they already understand. Probably they'll engage with the online materials prepared for them, but often they'll, because they're so busy, jump straight to the assessment, and then when they get stuck in an assessment task, go back and review the material, attempt some of the learning activities and so on. Often there's a discussion forum available for them, and if they get really stuck, they might go to the discussion forum to see whether there's any other students who have asked the same question and been given an answer, or to see whether the students in their discussion with each other have kind of helped them to address the issue or the area of ambiguity with the assessment. Often when they're working on the assessment task, they'll reach a problem, and sometimes it's quicker to Google to find the answer rather than trying to find it within the materials within the subject. So they might get through a whole subject without even reading huge amounts of the materials that have been designed for them and without completing many of the learning activities, except for the assessed ones at all. So in that kind of a scenario where students are picking and choosing the aspects of the learning experience that they need in order to successfully complete the assessment, what does quality look like and how can we measure it? From the student's perspective, one of the most important pieces of a quality learning experience is that choice and flexibility, so that they can take up the pieces that they need and have the flexibility to be able to take control of their busy lives. Obviously, clarity of assessment expectations is really important in that context. If students are going to self-regulate and really choose the experiences they need to be really clear on what the assessment requires and what learning they need to do before they can complete the assessment. And of course, all of the different learning resources, learning activities, teaching, and support provided need to be at a high quality so that the pieces that the student chooses are of the quality that they need in order to be successful. So what does it mean to evaluate the quality of a student learning experience in this context? Well, we need to evaluate with the expectation that no one student will have experienced all of the aspects of the subject. And we also need to assume that many students will have had learning experiences completely outside of those that we designed. So I guess the point of this think piece then is just to get you to think differently about the way that we design a quality learning experience, the way that we evaluate it, and the expectations we have of the way students are actually learning in the context of the resources, teaching, supports, and so on that we provide.